For this podcast, we packed up the Trekkermobile and headed 2 hours southeast of Richmond to the city of Norfolk, which is located in the coastal plain region of Virginia.
I'm David.
And I'm Brad. And I'm Alfonso.
And I'm Frank.
And we're Virginia Trekkers.
And we're here today in Norfolk, which is a city in the coastal plain regions of Virginia.
We're on board the ship USS Wisconsin.
Norfolk is also home to the largest naval base in the world.
We're going to take you on a tour of the USS Wisconsin, talk about the Navy, talk about shipbuilding, and a whole bunch of other really cool things in the coastal plain region.
So let's go trekking!
All right!
Alright, we're here on the battleship, and a battleship has to protect itself. Behind me, you're going to see 16-inch gun barrels that can shoot shells 26 miles.
Each one of these sets of guns, you see 2 sets of 3 guns, are sitting on a turret. And a turret will actually turn the guns. We could shoot the guns all the way to the right. We could turn it all the way around, shoot the guns to the left. And obviously, we cannot turn all the way around because then you'd blow the ship apart when they shot the guns. It would take 77 guys inside the turret to load the weapon and shoot the weapon. They could shoot 2 shells a minute. And if you remember back to our Battle of Williamsburg podcast, those guys had to load 1 musket in 1 minute. And these guys are shooting huge projectiles, 2 per minute. And here comes Dave.
Now let's just put that in a little perspective for you boys and girls. To shoot something out of that cannon is like shooting a VW Beetle, one of those little cars, 26 miles. And it can go those 26 miles in 45 seconds. So that's like running a marathon in 45 seconds. That's pretty fast. And boys and girls, remember, the first turret was invented by John Erickson on the Monitor, the famous ship that you all learn about. And now you can see they still use turrets in today's battleships.
Here I am standing next to a replica of one of the rounds. Frank was telling you about in the past when we talked about the muskets during the Civil War and they had to load in 1 minute, but that was just a little silver ball. Here it is. It's about the weight of the VW Bug. Over here on this side, this particular artillery was able to pierce armor. Very, very powerful. And if you take a look at the guns, you see the covering. Right now, this cover is made of rubber. Back in World War II, they used elephant skin dyed black in order to keep the water from damaging the guns.
We keep talking about the Civil War weapons that we saw at the Battle of Williamsburg. Well, you remember the guys had to tear off the little piece of paper and dump the gunpowder in? And that was just a little thing that carried them in a little case on their hip. Well, it would take 6 of these monster powders to shoot 1 of those rounds. So all this stuff was done inside this big, huge turret here with 77 guys running 3 guns apiece. All right, we're standing now in front of the most modern weapon on this ship. And this is the turret or the housing for a Tomahawk cruise missile. In the 1990s, this ship was deployed to the Persian Gulf to fight in the first Iraq War. And this missile at that time could shoot from here in Norfolk all the way to New York City. But now, the weapon that's housed in here could shoot from here in Norfolk all the way to the state of Wisconsin.
Oh my gosh.
The Trekkers have seen and learned about many different kinds of weapons during our podcast. We want to show you how the weapons have changed from the past to the present. We have learned about muskets during the Battle of Williamsburg and at Jamestown. The USS Wisconsin's main guns used similar technology to fire large shells during World War II. And today, the USS Wisconsin would use laser-guided missiles during a battle. The distances that these weapons can fire have also changed. The main guns on the Wisconsin could fire a shell 26 miles. The first generation of laser-guided missiles could shoot a missile 300 miles. And today's modern missiles can shoot a missile almost 900 miles. In a fleet, communication was a very, very important thing. The flags that you see behind me would be strung all the way up to the top of the ship, and they would signify letters, numbers, or just signals in general. If there was a man overboard, there was a flag just for man overboard. So it didn't matter what kind of ship you were on, these are international symbols, so it didn't matter where your ship was from, you would understand what was being flown over the USS Wisconsin. If you follow me over here, this light right here is a Morse code light invented by Samuel Morse, so they could send light signals from ship to ship as well.
Boys and girls, have you ever complained about the size of your room? Well, don't complain too much. Here on the ship, we had a lot of sailors, and we had to give them a place to sleep. Well, we're going to zoom in and show you where 1, 2, 3 sailors would sleep.
And boys and girls, if I don't videotape myself, I'll never be in this video. So I'm right here by the mess hall. It's where they eat, and it kind of looks like your cafeteria at home. Okay, so here we are with some models of the Merrimack and the Monitor. And you can see the Monitor's a little bit smaller, but this was, they were both ironclads, they both had iron around them. But the Monitor was the one that was really revolutionary because it had the turret, and that was the first time a turret had been used on a battleship. And the reason that was important was because then the battleship didn't have to turn to shoot. It could just turn the turret and shoot that way. And on the other side, this is an actual piece of the iron from the Merrimack.
Right, just like Dave was saying, there's a piece of iron which is a primary resource because it's the actual piece from one of the ships. Also, this battle was very, very important because it revolutionized warfare. Ships were now becoming fortified using metal instead of just wood.
We've talked a lot about the battleships. Well, battleships transformed a lot because now they're making more on just the aircraft carriers because they have the planes where they can land and take off. Well, here in the Hampton Roads area, it was really the birthplace of naval aviation. In 1910, they had the first successful flight where it took off and stayed up for 5 minutes. And it's taken off from that point where today we have our F-14s and F-16s taking off from these carriers.
I'm sitting in front of a replica of a tidal pool that you would find here in the Hampton Roads area of the coastal plain. And a tidal pool means that the water is going to come in and out of the estuary when we have a high tide and a low tide. We've got a bunch of really cool animals in here. We've got horseshoe crabs that are stuffed over here in the corner. And these things have been around since the dinosaurs were here. And if Dave will come a little bit closer, we've got mussels. The things in the black shells are mussels. We've got pencil urchins, like sea urchins. We've got hermit crabs, saltwater hermit crabs, and whelks. And we learned something really cool here. Whelks are born inside their shell, so their shell grows their entire life. Hermit crabs, on the other hand, go from one shell to another. They don't grow their own shell. So you guys can see the horseshoe crabs coming by here. And then the last thing I'm going to show you guys is the keelyfish. Keelyfish, they said if I stick my finger in the water, the fish are going to come and check me out. And here they come.
You must not taste very good, Frank.
I guess I don't taste very good at all. Now that we've mentioned the tides, let's talk about how tides work. In this graphic we have the moon and the earth, and we'll be looking at the earth as if we're looking at the South Pole. So we'll be looking at Antarctica. The tides on our planet are caused by the gravitational pull between the moon and the earth. That's right, our little moon is responsible for the high tides and low tides on our planet. As you can see, there are always 2 high tides and 2 low tides on our planet. And as the moon revolves around the earth, the high tides and low tides move with it. That's right, the trekkers had the opportunity to meet and touch nurse sharks. Nurse sharks can be found in the saltwater areas around Virginia. We learned that these sharks are social creatures and like to be touched. They do not have the large teeth like the great whites, so we knew our hands were safe. They had a very interesting skin texture. It was a lot like running your hand over sandpaper. Alfonso hopped in a shark cage to show you what it would look like if there were a great white swimming around him. And yes, a great white can become that large. After we all got a chance to touch the sharks, we headed out to the docks. The Norfolk area is a very busy place. The deep waters in the port make Norfolk a very important place. Very large ships, including military ships, are built and fixed here in the port. Because of the location of the port and the Atlantic Ocean, many of the goods that are imported and exported in Virginia come right here through Norfolk. While we were watching the waterway, we saw everything from the Coast Guard, huge personal yachts, and tugboats cruise by. There are many industries located here in the port, and many people rely on these industries to provide for their families. We hope to come back to this area to show you how the shipping industry works.
Boys and girls, we hope you enjoyed your tour of the USS Wisconsin.
Before we leave, we're going to share some interesting facts with you. This ship is almost 900 feet long, which is the equivalent of 3 football fields.
Not only is it really long, it's extremely wide, 100 feet wide.
As you can see, it's also very high. And it's not just the high part that you can see, there's also 40 feet of ship underneath the water that you can't see. So boys and girls, we hope you've enjoyed our tour of the USS Wisconsin. Be sure to check out our website, virginiatrekkers.com, for more podcasts.
And keep on trekking.